Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you all to the 27th Annual Clinch River Days Festival here in St. Paul. Before we get started, I just want to give a quick thank you to our town crew and multiple volunteers. Without them, this event would not be possible. Before we get started, I'd like to welcome a guest of ours, Congressman Morgan Griffith. He served the 9th Congressional District since 2010. In the 119th Congress, Morgan is the chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee, Subcommittee on Environment. He is a senior member of the Subcommittee on Oversight and Investigations and Subcommittee on Health. Morgan serves as a member of the Committee on the House Administrations, which oversees the daily operations of the House of Representatives and Capitol Security, provides oversight of federal elections. Morgan was appointed by Speaker Johnson to serve the House Committee on Rules in the 119th Congress. Morgan serves as Vice Chairman of the committee, which wields significant power in advancing legislation, controlling the terms of petitions of debate on a measure or matter, and contributing to the content of legislation. I'd like to honor and introduce Congressman Morgan Griffith.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be with you all this evening. What a great venue for what's going to be a very entertaining night. Thank you all very much. Proud that the federal government has a little bit of money in this, but you know, the money is one thing. The hard work of people like your town manager and all the folks here in town to get this project off the ground and up and running, it has been fabulous, and I'm glad to have done a little small part in that. I hope you have a great evening. As I always like to say to folks, I've been very blessed in life. I hope that you likewise have been blessed, and I hope that God will continue to bless the United States of America, and enjoy the evening. Thank you.
I'd also like to thank everyone for coming. We've been playing for many, excuse me for a second. My wife wanted to remind me to turn off my phone, so also I'd like to ask you to go ahead and pull out your phone and turn it off. And if you can't turn it off, at least put it to vibrate to be considerate of your fellow audience members. And that applies to y'all as well. For many years, of course, we've been playing here for many years, and for the longest time it was outside in the tent, and given the weather today, we appreciate very much being able to play in a wonderful facility like this, because there are many years where we had to pause concerts for thunderstorms, and so the wonderful venue here is very much appreciated. Now in just a few moments, we'll get started. So who here recognized that song? We've heard it before? Does anybody have any idea, feel free to guess, about the history of that song? Where was it first played? This song is very appropriate for this weekend's festival because it was first performed on a river. This was part of Handel's water music, and it was actually written for King George I, and he had barge parties on the Thames River. So the royal barge would float along the river, and the orchestra's barge would float beside it, and they would perform for the king. So, no offense to the Clinch River, I'm glad we're performing it here, not floating along the Clinch River, but I do feel it's very appropriate for the weekend. Again, thank you for coming. Thank you for hosting us as you have for so many years. I'd also like to thank a few others. I'd like to thank Lebanon High School, Mr. Ryan Potts, the principal, for allowing us to rehearse there. Also, Ms. Kelsey Sykes, the band director, for allowing us to rehearse there and use their equipment. I'd like to thank our sponsors. If you look on the back of your program, you'll see a list of sponsors. All the music we play is expensive. It usually costs between $100 to $200 for us to buy a piece of music and put it on the stand. So without the generous donations of many people, we couldn't perform various music at concerts like this. So I do appreciate their generosity. And finally, I'd like to thank Google and Wikipedia. If there's any kids in the audience, don't do this. But throughout the night, I'll share facts about the various pieces. And quite frankly, I usually do a Google search or go to Wikipedia. So kids, it's not good for your term papers, but it's okay for tonight. So the next Google search will tell us about Song Without Words, our next piece. This is from the Second Suite in F by Gustav Holst. This was written in 1911 and is based on an English country tune. And ironically, even though it's called Song Without Words, a vocal arrangement was written in 1917, written "I Love My Love." And the choral text describes the story of a maiden who has been committed to an asylum by her beloved's cruel parents, who have gone so far as to send their son to sea. In the third verse, the tenors sing the maiden's confidence that she'll be rescued. But the sopranos and altos' gently repeated phrase, "I love my love," gives the impression that she sits alone, rocking back and forth as her patience challenges her mental faculties. At the end of the piece, the sailor returns home and flies dramatically to his lover's aid. I hope you enjoy Song Without Words. Our next selection will be by our low brass section, and it's entitled Down in the River. And you may know it as Down to the River. That's the way I grew up hearing it, but there's various names of the piece. And this is, again, looking on Wikipedia, it's described as an African American spiritual or an Appalachian song or a Southern gospel song. And the earliest known published version was titled The Good Old Way, and was published in Slave Songs of the United States in 1867. So now we'll have the Orchestra Low Brass perform an arrangement of Down in the River by David Gluck. Our next selection is actually not even in your program. We're going to have a duet sung by one of our members, Andrew Delph, and one of his friends that he and Ernie have been singing for many years. So if Andrew and Ernie could step up on here, they will share a piece with you.
I don't know where we need to be.
Thank you, Father, for letting me get this far without falling.
This is the Clinch River Festival, and as such, we need to tie this in to the Clinch River. Ernie and I, we haven't sung this together until today for 25 years. We learned this, I don't know, in the late 70s, I think. Ernie called me one night from a hotel room Middlesboro, Kentucky, and said, teach me that song. So I did the best I could over the phone. And we both read music, but we learned this song by ear. As a matter of fact, I don't think I've ever seen the music of this song written down.
Our ears are big enough.
I heard you pick up. No, you speak for yourself. We worked this song up, paddling on the Clinch. We took canoes, we paddled along, we'd sing. I suspect we sung this song about 1,000 times at least. Enough that if you were ever fishing and saw me in there to go floating by, you probably heard us singing this song. With that said, it has been 25 years since we've done this. So it may be good, it may not. I probably need to tell you what we're saying. Yeah. We call it Daniel praying. It was, I didn't realize until last night when we looked at it was written. We always thought it was a quote-unquote traditional gospel. It was written in 1936, and I apologize, I don't remember the author's name.
We were really good.
And but when it's out there, we were born 11 days apart, and we're both 70 years apart. So, bear that in mind. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Without further ado. I heard about a man one day who wasted not his time away. Prayed to God every morning, noon, and night. He cared not for the king's degree, but trusted God to set him free. Oh, Daniel prayed every morning, noon, and night.
Oh, Daniel
served while here he tried. He prayed to God every morning, noon, and night.
He cared not for the things
living God. Oh, Daniel prayed every morning, noon, and night. They cast him in the lion's den because he would not honor men. He prayed to God every morning, noon, and night. Their jaws were locked, it made him shout, and God soon brought him safely out. Oh, Daniel prayed every morning, noon, and night.
Oh,
Daniel served while here he trod. He prayed to God every morning, noon, and night.
He cared not for the things
God. Oh, Daniel prayed every morning, noon, and night. Whoa, brothers, let us watch and pray like Daniel lived from day to day. He prayed to God every morning, noon, and night. We too can gladly dare and do the things of God. He'll take us through. Oh, Daniel prayed every morning, noon, and night.
Oh, Daniel served God here he
trod. He prayed to God every morning, noon, and night.
He cared not for the things
God. Oh, Daniel prayed every morning, noon, and night.
So our next selection is partially river themed. The Moldau. The Moldau by Diedrich Smetana. And this is a tone poem. The Moldau was written in 1874 as an homage to his Czech homeland. And a tone poem is a single movement orchestral work that tells a story or evokes a mood or idea. Smetana wrote an outline of what he intended to depict with his music. A forest brook rushing on becomes the river Vlatva, or Moldau. Coursing through Bohemia's valleys, it grows into a mighty stream. It flows through dense woods from which come joyous hunting sounds and the notes of the hunter's horn drawing nearer and nearer. It flows through emerald meadows and lowlands where a wedding's feast is being celebrated with songs and dances. So as you hear this piece, hopefully you can envision the river in Bohemia, but also maybe you can envision the Clinch River, building from the gentle streams up in the mountains and growing bigger and bigger as it joins other rivers. Our next selection will be by the strings, and is by the famous classical composer Wilhelm Joel. I'm sorry. Billy Joel. It's by Billy Joel. So this piece, And So It Goes, was written about a doomed relationship with the model Ellie McPherson. And there happened to be a significant age difference between the two, and that's one of the reasons why it was doomed. And when asked in an interview what the most Billy Joel song he ever wrote and performed was, he said, this piece, And So It Goes. So I hope you enjoy the strings version of And So It Goes. The next concert we have will be our July 4th concert, so we're giving you a teaser of one of the songs we're going to be performing there. So our next song is a patriotic song, America the Beautiful. The poem was initially written by Catherine Lee Bates, and she was inspired by a trip across America. And looking out from the top of Pikes Peak in Colorado, the words of a poem started to come to her. She titled the poem Pikes Peak. It was published 2 years later in 1895 entitled America. In 1910, her poem was combined with a tune by Samuel Ward and then titled America the Beautiful, and that's the piece that we all know. It has become one of our most popular patriotic songs. And this version has been arranged for solo trumpet by Roger Wood. Roger Wood is a producer, musical director, and trumpeter who's performed as lead trumpet with many groups including Chica Bora Bora, Sonora Troncana, Tom Kubis, Bill and Gloria Gaither, Glenn Campbell, Sandy Patty, Glenn Miller Orchestra, Diana Ross, various Broadway shows, and many other ensembles. In December 2021, he retired and moved out here from Los Angeles. So he moved out to East Tennessee, where he continues to arrange musical and perform with several regional ensembles. So please welcome to the stage, Roger Wood. The next piece the orchestra will play is Salvation is Created, and this is arranged by Ray Gilliland. This was originally a choral piece written by Pavel Chesnikov in 1912 as part of a group of communion hymns. However, due to the suppression of religion by the new Soviet government, Chesnikov never heard this piece performed. One of our members, Ray Gilliland, was moved by this piece and arranged it for our orchestra. He would be conducting it tonight, but he was offered the opportunity to play with the Barter Theater for the musical Frozen. So I do encourage you to go see Frozen at some point. I'm glad you're here tonight and not a Frozen tonight. I do hope you appreciate the lovely arrangement of Salvation is Created. In 2004, 4 hurricanes hit Florida. The third, Ivan, made landfall near the composer Robert Smith's hometown, with the hometown right in its path. This was the second storm to have a major impact on Robert Smith's life. So that inspired him to write the piece, Second Storm. And in this piece, you can hear the tranquil calm before the storm, followed by the fury of Mother Nature. In September of last year, Hurricane Helene made landfall in Florida as a Category 4 hurricane. It then stormed across multiple states, dropping up to 30 inches of rain in some places. Flooding plus winds of up to 60 miles per hour caused significant destruction in our region. We'd like to dedicate this next piece, The Second Storm, to those that were greatly affected by Hurricane Helene. We have one more piece to play. Before that, I'd like to again thank you for coming out. I know we have so much to do these days. If you're like me, you just enjoy sitting on the couch watching TV. So thank you for getting off the couch and coming to listen to us. And the good news is, if you enjoyed listening to our concert, we have another concert on July the 4th at the Lebanon Middle School at noon. So July 4th, middle school at noon. We'll play 2 pieces from tonight's concert there, and the rest will be pieces that you will not have heard tonight. That's part of Lebanon's Independence Day celebration. Also, there's another ensemble, the Winds of the Mountain Empire, that will be performing on Sunday, July 13th at 4 p.m. at Union High School at Big Stone Gap. And this is a wonderful ensemble. There's a few members of our group that play with this group as well, and the concert will be titled Highland Echo. So July 4th, Lebanon Middle School, and July 13th, 4 p.m. at Union High School. And now for our final selection, a salute to big bands. This piece was arranged by Calvin Custer. It's a medley of many of the big swing pieces from around the 40s or so. So you'll hear a medley of April in Paris, I'm Getting Sentimental Over You, Pennsylvania 6 5000, Serenade in Blue, and Sing, Sing, Sing. thank you all for coming. And just to let you know, there's still room on the stage. We have members that age range from 13 to 70 plus. So some people haven't touched their instrument in years, but you know what? If you get it out, knock some dust off, start practicing, there's room on the stage for you. So again, thanks for coming. I hope you have a good weekend and enjoy the festival.
Thank you for attending the Clinch River Days kickoff special. Thank you to the good congressmen and you, ladies and gentlemen, for spending your evening with us and supporting the Lyric Theater. We do hope to see you at our next event, which is June 8th. It is an original film screening by a local artist entitled In the Shadow of the Mountain. Thank you and drive safe.